Hi, welcome. I'm Sarah White, professional software engineer and one woman show behind Annie Graham's Productions. So last week we started playing the free demo of The Good People. It's a visual novel about uh, Irish mythology and the Seelie court versus the unseelie court. And so last week we met the denizens of the Seelie court. Shay, the Green Knight, who is kind of earnest and hardworking and has a temper, I should say. And then there's the kind of sly and mysterious Keegan, the master of secrets. And then there's the beautiful queen of the Seelie court, Aoife. So we've only met like half the cast so far. So I'm going to go ahead and continue the demo tonight. Hopefully we can get through the rest of it. Last time I spent a good chunk of it just like exploring the menus. They're really cool, okay? The custom menus. They're cool. This time I don't need to do that. So hopefully we can move a little faster this time. I also learned from last time that maybe I need the game volume up a little bit more on this one. Some lines are voice acted, others are not. So and I think I'll turn up that sound as well. There we go. Okay. So if you're used to Renpai games, and this is a Renpai game, you may be used to like the standard like save and load screens. Those don't exist in this game. They've really customized this GUI here, which is very interesting and definitely has its pros and cons. It's definitely very pretty, and very unique, but also kind of suffers because it's not consistent, because you're just like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Like, if I wasn't thinking about their goals and intentions, I may not realize that instead of the regular title screen where there's like a load game button, that I have to go into here, into this Book of the Traveler, which is like the common route, as far as I understand. Because if we look at like this bookshelf here, which again, very cool, very unique. Each of these books, based on the titles, looks like one of the characters. So, Book of the Soldier sounds like Shay. Book of the Warrior sounds like Maeve. I've only seen her name written so far, so I'm guessing at how to pronounce that, but we haven't met her yet. She's on the Unseelie side. Book of the King, he's also on the Unseelie side. Book of the Queen, that's Aoife. Book of the Trickster is probably Robin. And Book of the Master is probably Keegan. And as far as I can tell, the plan is probably to release these roots and pairs. So, for example, Book of the Soldier and Book of the Warrior are coming out soon, which is why the dev behind this has been kind of pushing people like, hey, now is a good time to check out our demo, because those two routes are about to come out. And sorry, I say route interchangeably with route because one parent said it one way and the other parent said it the other way, and I just say them interchangeably instead of like choosing one. It just depends on what I feel like at the moment. Anyway, so Book of the Traveler is the common route. That's what we're playing now, and I just have to like know to go in here and do a load game. And there's no like saving in the middle of a chapter. Instead you have to go to like chapter selection and go back to replay, or change your decisions or whatever it is. Very interesting. There's a lot of what I think is Gaelic. I'm pretty sure it's Gaelic. But thankfully the game does a really good job of giving you the English translations. So that's good, that's helpful. So you can see these are translated on hover, which is pretty cool. Alright. See, again, I'm just like spending all my time on the menus. It's very interesting. Very cool menus. Okay, let's load the game. We were about to play Chapter 5, The Human. With a tentative silence now between us, Queen Aoife guides me through the gardens to a gate in the palace walls. At a glance, it seems to lead back into the forests. Strange. I wonder why... I'm pretty sure it's like Daona's. Yeah, Daona.
Daona.
Daona's residence would be outside the palace grounds if they're in the employ of the queen. So, in case you missed last time, just quick recap. Our character is from like our real world Ireland during the Great Famine, as far as I could tell. But they were kind of kicked into this lake and wound up here. And everyone thinks that they're this other person, who is not us. Everyone acts like this is a name, but like it just means human. So I think it's just a title. And to be fair, we are human. Everyone seems to know that like we are from real world Ireland. They just think we're a different person from real world Ireland. Oh yeah, and then there's this whole cool thing where the background kind of moves with your mouse. I was totally gonna turn that off. Uh that one maybe? Let's see. Does that fix it? Yes, it does. Okay. Okay. Okay, now that we're here, let's just strange. I wonder why Daona's residence would be outside the palace grounds if they're in the employ of the queen. Do you have your key with you, darling? Oh. In a brief attempt to save face, I pat myself down as though I were searching for something I would usually have on me. No, sorry. I must have misplaced it. Oh dear. Well, we shall have to remedy that. But no matter, I have one here. Aoife hums softly, after which she seemingly snatches a key from the air. That is, unless I missed her digging around for a pocket in all those dress folds. Nevertheless, she's unlocked the gate before I can think on it much further. As I suspected, the other side of the gate does indeed extend into the forest, but I'm surprised again by how far we end up walking. Whoever this Daoine truly is, they certainly value their privacy. Eventually, even I reach a glade where a small but homey sort of cottage sits hidden away from prying eyes. The windows are dark, and the garden off to the side looks overrun. It's been a while since anyone's been here, that's for certain. Though, strangely, the rose bushes look a bit more well kept than the rest of the flora. Well, except for the fact they're currently being munched on by a very, very stupid horse.
Oh,
Oh my, is that your horse, Daoine? I don't think I've seen it before. I don't answer because my jaw has fallen completely slack. I can't believe what I'm seeing. But how? Why? Darby! Darby! I'm so glad we found our horse. What are you? Don't eat those. I see that damn fool of a horse's ears stiffly flip backwards, but otherwise she doesn't acknowledge me at all. I suppose that does answer my question. Flushing, I turn back to the queen, rigid and alert. Yes. But we were separated. Interesting. Well, never mind. I suppose now this is where we part ways. I would invite myself inside, but I'm sure the place is overrun with dust, so I shall leave you to your housekeeping. Do keep your ear to the ground, though. I imagine I will have need of you shortly. Right. Thank you, Queen Aoife. Hastily and very much distracted, I attempt something of a bow to the queen before sprinting off towards Darby, my mind swirling with questions. Do try to keep out of trouble, Erin. For a moment, I glanced back over my shoulder, certain I heard Aoife say something else, but she's already turning out of the glade by the time I do. Who's Erin? So, my horse. My horse was stolen. That's what started this whole thing. My horse was stolen. And we were running after the horse who was stolen. And that's how we ended up here. I shake my head and press on after Darby, who, despite my hollering, keeps chewing on those rose bushes without a care in the world. Bad horse! Stop that! You're going to get stuck here if you eat those. The mare raises her head and stares at me mid-chomp. Darby, I'm warning you, She swallows. My head falls back as I let out an exasperated sigh. Great. Perfect. How'd you feel if I just left you here then? Leave you to the fairies. Darby's ear is pressed down and she huffs at me. Oi, you're the one who decided to eat fairy food. Or, fairy flowers. Anyway, point is, the first thing people will tell you about the other world is you never, ever eat the food. I clutch my stomach as it suddenly groans. Damn, how long has it been since I ate? It was night when I stumbled in here, and morning when I popped out of the lake. But it still feels like morning now. The sky hasn't changed at all. I sigh, shaking my head again. It doesn't matter how long it's been. I am now well and truly hungry. But if I eat anything from this place, I'll be trapped here. I slap my forehead, the solution suddenly dawning on me. I'm Prata. The potato.
On prata.
I hurry over to Darby, but I have a sinking feeling in my gut. Right, Darby had all my stuff, including a potato. Please let it be there. Please let it still be there. I don't believe my eyes at first. Even as I unlatch the bag from Darby's saddle and peek inside, I brace for the worst. Oh, thank God. For the first time since all this madness began, I feel a heavy weight lift from my shoulders. Everything in the bag is still there. Holding back happy tears, I press the bag to my chest and cling to it for dear life. I was certain I had lost these things for good, but with them back, maybe, just maybe, everything will be alright after all. Of course, I still have to deal with you somehow. I ought to just leave you behind. But Darby, wholly uncaring, just continues to eat the shrubbery. I shake my head, digging around the saddlebag until I retrieve my own snack to munch on. It's not much, but it's also not fairy food. It'll tide me over until I can sneak back to that strange lake anyhow. In the meanwhile, I think I'm due a short rest. Part of me does wonder whether it would be prudent to pack up and backtrack immediately, but I'm now quite a ways out from where I was before. I think I could find my way to it well enough from memory, but I'll want to avoid the greater thoroughfare of the city. Too many people know my face, and if word spreads that I'm on the move, that could spell trouble. I don't like lingering in this place, but if I'm too hasty, I could end up squandering the one chance I have to make a clean break with, at the very least, the valuables. As for Darby, it probably can't be helped the more I think about it. She's an old girl, and though I'd miss this stubborn fool something terrible, there are worse fates to befall a horse than spending her final years in the land of the fairies. She'll be well fed, in any case. Regardless, with the saddlebag now slung firmly over my shoulder, I decide to make my way inside the cottage. The hinges audibly groan as I open the door and cautiously peek inside. After all, I don't exactly have much reason to assume it will be empty, especially since the door wasn't locked. Still, it seems vacant enough. An unsightly cluster of cobwebs adorn the walls. The fireplace is soot-stained and barren, and outside of the creaking floorboards, there's not a sound to be heard. It's not a spacious sort of place either. Outside of the foyer, the kitchen and living space seems to be all one room, with a single side door leading to the garden out back. If someone was here, at least on this floor, I'd hazard that I'd see them. I quickly and quietly duck inside the cottage. Despite the fact I don't intend to stay long, I can't help but try and liven the place up a little, creaking open the windows and letting some fresh air into the room. After that, I meander around the place for some time, not snooping, per se, just observing. I've heard, in a roundabout sort of fashion, a fair bit about my double today, and this is allegedly where they live. Or lived. For all I know, Daoine could be dead. Right, dead. They're probably dead. Everyone I've met talks about Daoine as though they've been missing for a long while now, so it only makes sense. Absently, my eyes drift back towards the entryway's windows, where I see Darby idling out front. Despite myself, I feel the questions I've been suppressing bubbling up in my mind. How did she get here, of all places? And for that matter, why is there someone who looks... I clear my throat and clutch my bag a little tighter. It didn't matter. It did not matter. It's just some fairy trickery is all. As I continue to scope out the cottage, I find myself drawn to a shelving unit in the far corner of the first level. Unlike the rest of the place, which, while fairly fancy, is not all that unusual looking, there's something very exceptional about the shelf. The whole thing is stacked with strange herbs, bottled elixirs, and leather-bound, hand-stitched books. Curious, I arbitrarily pull one of the books out and crash. To my immediate regret, it snags on several other items while coming out, which all go tumbling down to the floor. I jump out of the way and wince as a few bottles break. Not only is a reflexive response to my own clumsiness, but also, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, the stench! I gag, instinctively clapping my free hand over my mouth and nose. Though my eyes are watering something fierce, I take a glance below me and, oh Lord, one of the tonics eating through the rug. In a mad dash, I set the back book I nabbed and my saddlebag down on a nearby side table, then crouch to pick up what things I can before they're all ruined. 3 vibrantly colored vials, some sage it seems, a few more books, and a letter of some sort. I glance at it briefly, but the writing is strange to me. Creak. I freeze, paling as I hear the familiar creak of the front door's hinges, but I don't dare glance behind me. Spare the letter, which gets hurriedly stuffed inside my pocket. All the things I'd collected under my arm fall by the wayside as I scramble to the back door and dip into the garden to hide. It'd be one thing if someone had knocked, but entering uninvited? That spells a sort of trouble I didn't want to trifle with, especially not here and now. Nevertheless, I keep the door ajar as I hide, not just to see who's there, but what they're doing here too. If they get too close to my spot, I'll just run up on Darby and... I'm an idiot. My saddlebag! I left it on the table inside! Frantic, I peek around to that side of the room. But I'm not quite sure what it is I end up seeing. Despite how strange the folks who live around here are, they all look more or less human-y to my eye. But this person, if they can be called a person, has quite a bit of animal in them too. They stand on their hind legs, but their feet are cloven, and their body is covered in fur, which is clothed only by a loose shawl. As my eyes trail upwards, it's difficult to miss the protruding horns and the bright caprine eyes. And, unluckily for me, they're right by the scene of my mess, staring down at the sprawling contents of the floor. I hold my breath as they poke around the place. Surprisingly, they seem to be trying to neaten it back up again, picking up the scattered items and loading them back onto the shelf. Even more curious, after spotting the leaking elixir and giving the inkish black liquid a loud sniff, they immediately extract another concoction from the shelf and pour it onto the floor, which seemingly neutralizes the potion. As they start to move away from the scene, I release my breath, relieved. But just as I do that, they pause again. Standing perfectly still, their large, downward-turned ears twitch, as though listening intently to the environment around them. I don't move a muscle. Abruptly, they sniff the air again and whirl around in their spot. My heartbeat thuds as they take a step towards me, but then, their gaze lands on my saddlebag. My fists clench as they saunter over and flip open the lid. They lean over the top, exaggerating the turn of their head as they peer inside. They reach in and pull out the half-eaten potato. They sniff it, face twisted into a befuddled focus, then they lick it. I suppose I'm not eating the rest of that. All of a sudden, the strange goat person drops the potato and hastily wipes down their hands on their shawl, their head turning wildly in all manner of directions. For a brief moment, their gaze falls on the door I'm hiding behind. I move quickly and quietly away from the gap, covering my mouth so that I don't make a sound. I freeze there in silence for what feels like a full minute, but nothing happens and I don't hear anything at all. Cautiously, I inch back towards the door, only to come face to face with a great big eye leering right back at me. Ah! My fight or flight reflexes kick in, and somewhat shockingly, they go to fight. Flat on my back, I kick the door open with my foot, expending all the force I can muster. I had hoped to wallop the thing right in the face, but the door just swings open and clatters against the interior wall. Hurriedly, I spring up and run inside, but nobody's there. It's as though they've just vanished into thin air, right along with my bag. Before I can properly panic, I hear what sounds like a whinny from Darby out front. I run, praying that I'm not about to have both my bag and horse stolen again. But instead, what I see is yet another horse. A great big monster of a thing, too, right before it runs off into the woods with my saddlebag clenched in its teeth. The realization dawns on me all at once. Whatever else that thing might have been, it is, in fact, some kind of shape changer. But for now, that isn't important. I have to go after them. I can't let my saddlebag disappear again. I bolt over to Darby and swing into her saddle. Surprised, she immediately tries to throw me off my balance. But I hold firm with my knees and pull in her reins. "Oh, not this time you don't." She acquiesces to my control and kicks off into a gallop at my command, tearing off into the woods behind the horse thief. Of course, the other horse is a good deal faster than Darby and I, so I can only just see the tail end of it through all the woods. Still, I figure the damn thing has to come to a stop eventually, and when it does... Wait, where'd it go? I reel in the reins, forcing Darby to come to a rather abrupt halt, of which she is none too pleased about. I ignore her grumpy whines of protest, though, as we have a more pressing concern now. Namely, not only has the horse we were chasing just up and vanished, but it's left some kind of white, shapeless void behind it. I stare, utterly perplexed, as the void ebbs and flows. Looking down at the ground, I also notice a set of hooves leading into it. Initially, I hesitate. I have no idea what this thing is, or why the other horse would have run through it, assuming that it had intended to do that to begin with. Before I can really weigh my options, though, I can see it begin to fade. Now left with a split-second decision, one that could cost me that saddlebag forever, oh, for Pete's sake. I spur Darby into the void. I thought it was going to give me a choice. And I'd have to do it in like a split second. But no choice. My guess is we're going to end up in the Unseelie Court now. Alright. Chapter 6, Call of the Crows. I feel a tugging in my navel, like some force is violently dragging me forward, and a crisp wind hits my face. Whoa now. Tugging in the reins, I call for Darby to stop so I can reorient myself. What in the hell? Wings of golden light illuminate through the canopy of the otherwise dark and foreboding forest, now absent of any features of spring. Nothing green remains. All the trees are painted in the cool autumn hues, and the leaves fall with such frequency that I'm surprised any above remain. Impossibly large mushrooms replace the vibrant flowers and undergrowth of the Seelie forest, and the eerie silence is only occasionally interrupted by a gust of wind. I shiver in the saddle as chilly air and a steady drizzle of rain quickly permeates through my clothes. Where am I? I look behind me for any signs of the void, the cottage, or the bright morning sunlight I had left behind. But all I find is more of this damp air and darkness. I scan the forest floor for any tracks that might guide me, but the horse I was chasing seems to have simply vanished into thin air. Where could it have even gone? I search the canopy, but only find a few crows watching me from above. My mind swirls with confusion as I clench Darby's reins and turn her around in hopeless circles, as though that would somehow take me back to where I was. Oh, what was I thinking? I'm even more lost than I was before. I groan and throw my hands up in frustration, causing Darby to huff nervously and shift underneath me. Oh, sorry, Darby. I stroke her neck until she relaxes again. At least this time I'm not lost and alone. But what should I do? Just pick a direction and hope for the best? I have no idea where I am, much less how far I am away from that lake now. Not to mention, given the sudden shift in the seasons, I can't help but fear the worst. That somehow, after running through that void, even more time has passed than I can afford. Wait a second. The map from Shay's outpost. I rack my brain for as many details as I can remember. That city. The city name, I can never remember how to pronounce it.
Tever.
Tever. It does not look like it should be Tever. A large city in Folius. Right. I pause, a realization coming to me. I remember that map called Folius, the province of spring. At first I thought it was a figure of speech, but maybe it wasn't. Could each province be stuck in a season? That would explain all these changes. I keep going down this line of thinking. Since this place is autumn, it must be Moirai, I think?
Moirai.
Yeah, Moirai. Can't say for sure, but knowing I haven't somehow jumped forward in time makes me feel a little better about all this. If only I had that map with me, then maybe I could find my way to the border. Sigh. It seems like I don't have a choice here. If I don't get going somewhere or another, then I'm just going to sit here and shiver. Resigning myself to aimless wandering, Darby and I set off in search of any signs of civilization. Caw! As we approach a dirt road deeper into the forest, more crows begin to fly in and perch in the canopy. The more the merrier, I suppose. But in the silence of the forest, the growing audience in the canopy is a little creepy. It really does feel like I'm being watched, and the increasing darkness of my surroundings doesn't help much either. An unsettling cacophony of crowing. Okay, actually, maybe it's very creepy. I urge Darby into a canter, and we hurry down the path, hoping to escape the uncanny atmosphere. Suppose she's still coming for us still? Shut up, would ya? If she is, she'll be following the sound of your yellow bellying. I gently pull back on Darby's reins as I hear a group of voices up ahead of me. For a moment, I breathe a sigh of relief. That didn't take long at all. Maybe my luck is finally turning around. Pshaw, let her come then. I'll give her a right proper wallop. You'll give her a... Are you mad? She's the bleeding more. For the love of... Angus. The god of youth, love, and poetry. Stop your jawing and help me move this cart. And you, if you don't stop drinking all our wares, your piss-soaked trousers are going in a ditch. So unless you fancy walking back to Glorious barehanded in the snow.
Glorious.
Yeah, Glorious. Bah, piss off, fa. Sigh. Alright, that's enough. That's enough of that for you. What? Don't go snatching a man's whiskey before he's finished. Well, there's definitely something off about the trio. One of them is unquestionably drunk, and the others seem to be restless and on edge. It might not be a good idea to approach them after all. Still, I don't know when I'll be crossing another person's path. These forests are dense and intimidating and filled with who knows what. Do I really want to risk what might be my one chance in finding my way out of here? I clench my jaw. I don't want to turn back if I don't have to, so I resolve to inch myself a little bit forward and just keep listening in on their conversation for now. If they seem like trouble, then I'll just turn heel and be on my way. At least they don't seem to be going anywhere fast, from what I can tell, squinting through the trees. Bollocks. How's anyone supposed to move about these godforsaken woods when it's always raining and making a mess of the roads? Huh. Missing home. Gods no. Do I look like I enjoy freezing my tits off? Snort. What tits? You know, one of these days I'm gonna cut that tongue from your god-shite mouth. Easy up. If we're caught like this, we're all getting worse. Duh. If I thought you were gonna be such a lily-livered little coward about all this. Good sense ain't cowardice. I didn't think we were gonna snatch this from the main supply lines, right under the nose of... Where else, you idiot? Further north you go, the less anything grows. All I'm saying is we were doing just fine. Huh. You call holding up poor bastards on the roadside fine? It wasn't much, but we made do. We should just grab what we can and get a move on. This is the right wash and you know it. Don't be stupid. You know how much grain's in there? We'd be living fat and happy like old King Moirai for a year. Henri.
King Henri.
For a year, easy. Not if we don't make it back. Then move your hide and push. This bloody cart ain't going nowhere without more hands. You know, you're right. Alright, where'd that drunken languor toddle off to? The suddenness of yet another crow up above nearly startles me out of my skin. I huff, glaring a little at the little menace as it swoops down, and forces me to lock eyes with the drunkard, peering at me through the foliage. Caught off guard, I momentarily hesitate, and that unfortunately gives the drunkard enough time to lunge at me, even as I kick Darby into motion. With one swift motion, the hefty brute grabs a fistful of my clothes and yanks me off Darby's saddle. I land with a thud to the muddy forest floor, watching helplessly as Darby spurs on down the path. Stupid horse! Not so fast.
Spira.
Not so fast, Spira. The drunkard whistles to the other bandits before dragging me to my feet and shoving me forward. I struggle against his grip, hoping to at least throw him off balance, but it's useless. He's short and stout, but as sturdy as a brick house, even sloshed. Up ahead, I finally see the scene that had been mostly hidden from me up until now. The bandits have been struggling to dislodge a horse-drawn cart from a muddy rut. It's so well unstuck that the cart looks close to tipping over. I can't see past the sheet covering the cart's contents, but if it's all grain, then there's no way their poor horse will be able to pull all that for long, at least not by itself. As the drunkard and I meander into view, the two other bandits block Darby's path and calm her down enough to grab hold of her reins. My stomach sinks. This is not good. Not good at all. How about that, huh? That old bag Danu's smiling on us after all. Fate's brought us a horse and a fancy bastard to boot. Very fancy. Who are they supposed to be, anyhow? And what's with the ears? I failed to find a proper answer to any of these questions as I feel my mouth go dry. My eyes dart between the bandits, or more pertinently, the weapons at their sides. Eventually, I managed to sputter out a pitiful little plea. But please, I don't have anything of value. No, don't look it to me. The drunkard claps me on the back, sending me stumbling right into the middle of all three bandits. I'm surrounded. It's true, though. Check me, check my horse. I was already robbed of everything. It is true. Except for the fancy tunic Keegan bought me, which I am still wearing, I believe. The bandit woman snorts as I say this, giving me a disdainful once-over. You know, lads, I don't doubt it. The other bandits guffaw, and a look of understanding seems to cross all their faces. I swallow hard. How am I going to get out of this? Look, I don't want any trouble with you folks. Honest, I was just passing through. Shut it. The bandit woman stalks towards me, her hand reaching towards her waist. I'll be square with you. We're in a bit of a rush here, so I don't much care to deal with you any longer than I need to. So here's how this works. We're taking the horse. You're outnumbered, defenseless, and by the looks of it, have never been in a real scrap in your life. So unless you'd like me to paint the roadside with your entrails, best move along now. I can't let them take Darby. I'm not losing the old girl again. This one isn't timed. It probably should be. Make a break for protest. Good question. Here's the thing. These are dangerous bandits. They had swords. Very clearly. She read my character correctly. I have no weapon, no fighting experience. I have no chance against them. I'm gonna make a break for it. I step back with my hands raised, giving the bandit woman a brief nod before casting my gaze downward. I attempt to look as dejected as I can while I walk away off before making a break towards Darby. I've tossed myself onto her plenty of times, and she's so close. If I can just get... Ack! I tumble onto my knees after having my legs kicked out from under me. It takes me a moment before I realize that the bandit woman just up and tackled me. An even longer moment passes before I notice the sharp object digging in between my shoulder blades. Wrong way. Shite. I find myself completely frozen. Is this it? Is this how I meet my end? I suck in a breath through my teeth, awaiting the inevitable with my eyes squinted shut. Yeah, that's what I thought. My eyes flash open again. I flip over and scramble back onto my feet, realizing the bandit had been wrenched off of me. Out of nowhere, a mysterious woman stands between me and my assailer. Her bronze sword glints in the evening light as she raises it to parry the bandit woman's dagger, before kicking her square in the chest and knocking her onto the ground breathless. Without sparing me a glance, the warrior woman lunges towards the other bandits. The nervous man fumbles as he retrieves his sword, and the drunkard is unable to keep up with the warrior's unending onslaught through his inebriation. All I can do is watch my savior with awe as she dodges one man's sloppy swing before swiftly taking him down and then blocking the other's sword just as it comes at her. She effortlessly defends against both men, though I suppose one being drunk doesn't hurt. A movement in my periphery catches my attention in time to see the bandit woman has crawled back to her feet, her dagger once again in hand. The warrior is engaged with the second man still, and will never see her in time. Oh shoot. Well, it chose one for me, which is fine. Behind you! I call out to the woman fighting the bandits, but I'm not sure if she can hear me over the fight. The bandit woman pauses mid-step when I do, and suddenly remembers that I'm here. She rushes over to me, dagger held at the ready, but before I can even think to run, Huh, what the? Ouch! Hey, get away, you stupid birds! My jaw drops as all the crows in the canopy dive bomb the bandit woman from above. Now, why didn't those crows attack her earlier? The crows were there. They were watching the whole time. She drops the knife almost instantly in an effort to swat the birds away, but she just ends up tripping over herself as she flails, panicked. It's a little disturbing, if I'm honest. She bundles up into a ball, hiding her face from the crows' beaks and talons, but they still tear through her back. Once the birds see fit to fly away, I can't help but creep towards her cautiously, despite the fact she nearly killed me moments before. Is she... Did I... She's a little worse for wear, but alive. The woman is sheathing her sword as she approaches me. The other two bandits are both lying unconscious behind her.
Thank you for giving me a heads up just then.
Them too. Are you okay? They didn't injure you? I'm sorry I didn't get here faster. Thank you. I'm fine, mostly, just a little shaken up. I've never been in a real fight before. Then I apologize again for dragging you into one.
By the way, I'm Maithe, commander of the Unseelie Sentinels. I've been trailing these bandits for a while now, after they stole some supplies being sent out of province.
Maeve Tridjur.
Yeah, Maeve. The given name means she who rules. The epithet means hour of the fight. She gestures over to the covered cart. Pleasure, Maeve. I'm the Sealy Court Druid. Mouth agape, I stared at her for a moment. Some small part of me had hoped that I might be able to escape this continuous identity crisis, but no such luck. Oh. Oh. Well, normally the little play button works, but it doesn't work in this case. As a Milesian, the Milesian defeated the... for the conquest of Anisho. They are believed to be the ancestors of the Gales. As a Milesian, you're pretty conspicuous if you know what to look for. Not to mention the outfit gives you away. Not every day a member of the Sealy Court gets caught crossing this side of the border. Gets caught? I don't much like the sound of that. So, Druid, want to tell me what you're doing here? I shuffle a bit nervously, wondering if my answer could land me in trouble. Still, I don't really know enough about what's going on to lie. It's a very long story. For one, I'm not clear where here is. Maeve observes me for a moment, like she's trying to figure out if I'm being honest or not. Wordlessly, she turns to inspect the cart's contents. You're in the forest, just outside... whatever this is.
Cashlan Nanini.
Yeah, that. Castle of the People is a stronghold in Marius and the present capital of the Unseelie Court. So you can understand why I can't just let you leave. Our enemy's court druid showing up here, just shy of the capital, is a fairly substantial criminal offense. Trespassing and all that. Criminal? Oh, for... However, since you helped me out here, you can ride alongside me with your horse rather than in the back of this lot. Gesturing over to the groaning bandits, she gives me a genial nudge before procuring some rope from somewhere. Once I load them onto the cart, we're heading straight to the king. On the way, you can give me the highlights of what you're up to. Yeah, okay. I have to say, so far Maeve has been nicer and more straightforward with me than anyone, despite the fact that I've apparently broken the law just by being here. Maybe if I stay on her good side, she'll be convinced I'm not here to cause trouble. If we are going to see the king, I need all the help I can get. As Maeve picks up one end of a bandit, I lift the other and we heave them each onto the cart before binding them together with a rope. By the time we're done, the fabric against my back is damp and my shoulders are burning. Maeve, however, seems completely unbothered. I have to admit, you've surprised me yet again, Druid. So far, you are nothing like what I expected. It's refreshing. I feel a little bashful from the praise. I faintly wonder if buttering me up is some kind of compliance tactic, but if it is, it's working. Oh, well, thanks. I'll go get Darby hooked up to the cart. Maeve grins, nodding at me as I go. God, she's pretty. Before we get going, Maeve gestures for me to follow her to the driver's seat. I nervously follow, but to my surprise, she removes a cloak from the cart and gently wraps it around me before tying it together. Sailor clothes aren't exactly made to withstand our climates. Put the hood up as well, to hide your ears. My body relaxes into the warmth of the cloak, as though it was just now remembering how cold it was before. I guess my adrenaline rush back there helped too. It takes a few minutes for Maeve and I to unwedge the cart from the rut, but with 2 horses at the front and us pushing at the rear, we get it done. Though, if I'm being honest, Maeve did most of the heavy lifting. Finally, we set out on the road, side by side, in the front of the cart. Well, all we have now is time. Let's hear it. Right, well, I very cautiously explain and try to keep the details as sparse as possible, just in case. I was just at my cottage when I saw something take off into the woods with my saddlebag. I had some important things in there, so I gave chase on Darby here, but then I fell into this, I don't know what to call it, void, I guess? A great big white light. Anyway, I fumbled in and it spat me out here. Don't know how. I've never seen anything like it. I was looking for directions when I ran into the bandits. And then you. Despite my clumsy description, Maeve seems to be following the narrative better than me. Once I finish, I wait for her verdict. Did you see what the thief looks like? I hesitate. This may be Tirnanog, but I don't exactly know how common literal horse thieves are, or whatever that thing was. It had purplish hair? Well, it was better than nothing. Unbelievable. Damn it. Of all the times, I'm going to make sure this time they don't get away with it. Pardon? Sorry, I just have a recurring pain in the arse to address. The good news for you is, I know who has your stuff. In fact, I think you do too. I sit up a little straighter. I do? Maeve heaves a long sigh and looks at me warily. Well, we'll soon find out. It's only a suspicion for now. My stomach turns as I think about the possibility of interacting with yet another acquaintance of Daoine's, but I feel a minor sense of relief as well. It's not much, but at least it's a lead. I don't have to fight a dragon for it or anything, do I? Why would you have to do something like that? Sorry, it's just been a weird day. Or possibly longer. I can't really tell. So, who is it and where can I find them? We're already heading there. Don't you worry. We still have a little ways to go though, so make yourself comfortable. I nod, settling back into my seat. Alright. Quietly riding towards yet another menacing capital city is going to kill me. Maeve's been friendly enough with me so far, so I might as well make conversation. Once I can think of a topic, anyway. What's with the birds? Or is this a normal day for you? My eyes drift to the air as the forest begins thinning out a little, and patches of sky become clear. Squinting, I notice a few crows flying overhead. Seriously? Still? I look back to Maeve, the only commonality for this occurrence. So, what's with the birds? Maeve responds with a short laugh.
Not a fan of my entourage, silly.
What? No, I love being stalked by a murder of crows. It's not unsettling at the slightest. Oh good, I was worried for a moment there. They followed me around ever since I was a child. Really? Why? You're not having me on, are you? You really don't know? No, ma'am. I can assure you that I am clueless in all things. Well, never you mind then. They're just my little helpers is all. I raise an eyebrow, not quite believing that's the end of it, but I don't press her. It's none of my business after all. As Maeve and I approach the end of the autumn forest, we come to a cliffside with an imposing castle on its precipice and a storming lake to its back. Here we are. That's the capital? It's no Tever. But yes, the stronghold itself is home to about 200 people, with more folks in the surrounding villages. It's not the biggest castle the Unseelie took, but it was the last and hardest fought.
Lugad.
Lugad, the first king of the Unseelie. He is called the Traitor King by the Seelie court. Yes, the Shay had like a training dummy with like this sign that said the Traitor King on it. King Lugad felt it was necessary to make this place, the last city before spring, our capital. He was the sort of person to take symbolic gestures very seriously. Was? The question pops out of me accidentally, and mostly out of confusion. I thought Maeve said we were on our way to meet the king. He's dead. Succeeded by his son, King...
Flannan Maclou.
Flannan.
Flannan Maclou.
Yeah, Flannan. The given name means blood red. The surname means son of blue. I'm surprised you don't know. Anyway, let's keep going. The castle town is much different than Tever. Tever? Tever, okay. The city feels slower, a bit emptier. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this. I guess I figured the king would be as ostentatious as Aoife. The buildings haven't been maintained very well either. Some of the shopkeepers are patching up walls rather than attending to their empty counters. In some senses, it reminds me more of home, but that's surprising in its own way. I must be wearing quite the expression because Maeve starts explaining.
It doesn't look like much now, but it's a sight better than it was when we first started rebuilding. The war took a great toll on Moirai. Glorious too, of course, but the fighting and the destruction was always more intense in these parts.
Between the Seelie's trade embargo, keeping the gangs under control, and restructuring how everyone gets fed, well, we just haven't had the time or resources to mend every roof. The king hasn't been on the throne long either, but he has good plans in mind. We don't have much, but we're doing what we can, and it helps to know we're in this together. With time and cooperation, we might even be able to make this place better than before. There's a twinkle in her eye, and she casually looks over at me as she suggests it. Does she mean mean? Or, well, Dana? Is that why she's being so genial? Am I being recruited? I find myself fidgeting with the cloak Maeve gave me. Is a druid that influential? As we continue on through the city, I notice that most of the townspeople who spot Maeve come up to greet us. Oh, Maeve, won't you come by sometime for a cup? Thank you. I'll come by sometime. Maeve, thanks for getting my lyre back. Next song is dedicated to you. If that's true, Gillian, it better not be another one about tavern girls. Hi, Maeve. I've got something set aside for you now. Maeve pauses at the vendor stall. What do you say? Want to take a little detour with me? Sure. I'm in no rush for another royal confrontation. Not to mention, Maeve isn't the worst company I've had so far. Excellent. We lead the cart over to the vendor who called out to us, and he pulls out a small brown bottle that's been sealed with red wax. Not too much trouble getting it? She handles the bottle gently, tucking it into her saddlebag with care before fishing out a few odd-looking coins. If they can even be called coins, they look more like rings. These days, what isn't too much trouble, but for you, it was nothing. You're too kind. As we turn to leave, the man catches Maeve's attention once more. By the way, I meant to tell you, that old bandit gang, the... Nua Fianna. An unseelie band of vigilantes who steal from the wealthy to give to the poor. They are named after the legendary Fianna, warrior band led by whoever this is.
Fionn McCool.
Oh yeah, the one who once ate a really smart fish. They're back around causing trouble. Thought you'd want to take care of it before the king does. I'll see what I can do. We head back towards the castle, but the atmosphere has changed. Maeve seems distracted by what the vendor said. Maeve? Sorry, I got lost in thought. About the group the vendor mentioned, who are they? It's a bit complicated. Some folks will tell you they're just another group of bandits. But, well, they don't see themselves that way. And I don't think it's completely fair to say they're just another gang. But maybe that's my bias talking. I used to be one of them before I ended up where I am now. What? Really?
It was a long time ago. They gave me a home when I had nowhere else to go and saw themselves as vigilantes, bringers of justice. They're not all bad, but not all good either. I left because I realized we weren't fixing anything. Not really.
I want to help them help themselves, I suppose. I don't know if I'll be able to reach them, but I want to try. But enough about me. I have supplies and a very companionable druid to deliver. Come on now. We should head to the stables and then into the keep. After that, stick by and let me do most of the talking. Not a problem. If I've learned anything so far, it's to try and avoid attention. Maeve takes me into the stables, where she assures me that Darby will be well taken care of. Trust me, these horses eat better than we do. While I get Darby's stall set up, Maeve takes the cart and bandits to a small group of guards, where she starts giving them instructions. I'm filling the water trough when she's... Okay, when she returns.
Hey, I just want you to know I think you're telling the truth. I hope that makes you feel a little better about all this.
Yeah, it does. It helps. It helps, Maeve. Thanks. It does, but my stomach is too queasy to answer with more than a nod and a weak smile. Once we reach the enormous wooden doors of the keep, Maeve gives me one last comforting smile and places a hand gently on my shoulder. You'll be fine. Probably. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Maeve. The Horned Devil. The Book of a Traveler. Chapter 7. As Maeve heaves open the heavy wooden doors, a wave of heat falls over me. The warmth eases the bitter autumn wind from my weary bones, but just as soon as I begin to feel myself relaxing, something else strikes my senses. The rich, all-encompassing smell of a freshly cooked feast. Oh no, and we're still so hungry. All we had was half a potato. I blink, taking in the strange scene before me. What kind of throne room is this? It's nothing like the Seelys. The Seelys' throne room was big and bombastic and yes, and this is very much more casual, just like people hanging out, enjoying stuff. Look at this guy in the background just like chugging that beer, man, or ale, whatever. In fact, if not for the literal throne at the far back, I wouldn't have realized this was a throne room at all. If anything, it's more of a public dining hall. The majority of the room is consumed by massive wood tables covered end to end with all sorts of food and drink. I feel my mouth water enviously as I watch the crowd of common folk mingle and treat themselves to the fresh loaves of bread, steaming hot meats, fruits and vegetables, cakes and cheeses, mead and whiskey. My stomach twists painfully, audibly. Go ahead. Huh?
You're hungry. Eat something. We'll be waiting a while still.
Dagda.
Okay. The Dagda's feast feeds all. No, that's alright. I'm fine. Of course, that was just about the biggest, fattest lie I've ever spoken in all my life, but I just couldn't. Even now, I had to hold out hope. Suit yourself. With that, Maeve steers us away from the tables and off to the side, right around the center of the room. The silence is awkward, so I break it. Let's ask about the king. Who's this person that we're about to meet? So, we're waiting on the king, right? Maeve gives me a quick glance, then nods her head. Mm-hmm.
It isn't every day a silly spy of such a standing gets caught crossing the border.
What? But you said I'm not. You can relax. I'm only joking. Kinda. You did illegally cross into unseelie territory, and ordinarily the punishment for doing so is, well, not good. But so far you've shown me a fair quality of character, so I'm going to vouch for you. Besides, if what you said before is true, then none of this was your fault. Still, we have to verify the validity of your story, and ultimately the king has final say on what's to be done with you. That could be trouble. I don't know anything about this other king, and by the way she talks of it, my life may depend on his temperament. What's he like? Maeve looks away, a bit hesitant. I imagine you've heard by now. Why don't you tell me? I don't know. Maeve's gaze turns back to me. I fold my arms together, then shrug. Guess I don't pay much attention to the politics. I can't say I believe that, but I understand the sentiment.
The Seelie like to pretend that we're nothing more than heretical traitors. I suppose that's why they called us the Unseelie to begin with.
True enough, the war was an act of treason. But the why matters, don't you think? You know what the Seelie court is like. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that they aren't too concerned with important matters like poverty, crime. Well, the old king's court was just the same. Worse, even. Falius and Phineas are well enough off, but Moirai and Gorius have always been left behind. The rebellion was only a matter of time. It didn't do everything right by a long stretch, and I've had my own hesitations in the past, but now we're trying to make Tirnanook better for everyone, not just the nobility. If you can accept that and swear your fealty, you'll have no problems with the king. Besides, your insights could be invaluable to us. My eyes widen. Swear my fealty? Of course. We can't let Seelie, let alone the court druid, simply come and go as they see fit. Have a problem with that? Maeve stares at me with a greater intensity than I've come to expect from her, and it sends a shiver down my spine. Oh lord, I've really done it now.
Oh,
The Morrigan.
Oh, interesting.
The Morrigan.
The goddess of chaos and war, taking many names and many forms. Have you seen her crows by chance? The crows, Maeve's crows? Moirai, are you giving my friend over there a hard time? Abruptly cut off, Maeve and I both look up in the direction of the dice. I should know that word. But, you know, there are some words that you've only seen written and you've never had reason to speak them or heard them spoken. That's one of those words. I have no clue how to pronounce it. Where someone familiar sits on the throne. Yeah, that silhouette. I wonder who it is.
Robin.
Robin, get down from there.
Robin Goodfellow.
Now this one I can pronounce. The given name means fame bright. The surname means congenial companion. But this Robin person ignores Maeve entirely, choosing to instead set their gaze squarely on me.
Daoine, did you go breaking the court's treaty of mutual surrender just to see little old me? You shouldn't have. Really, you shouldn't have.
Oh hey, catch! Robin practically jolts out of the throne, reeling back her arm and giving it a good swing forward. Before I quite realize it, a vaguely brownish-looking blob is hurtling its way across the room, right towards my face. All I can do is flinch and fling my arms up over my head, but the collision never comes. When I dare open my eyes again, I see Maeve glaring furiously at Robin, her hand outstretched in front of me, clenching onto my saddlebag. This yours, is it? Gawking, I reach out and grab it from her. Sure enough, as I tear through the contents of the bag, all my things are still in it. I stand there, baffled. Why would you... Why'd I what? I startle as Robin is suddenly standing right in front of me, grinning ear to ear. Hastily swinging the bag out of Claw's reach, I stand up straight and jab my finger into their chest. Why did you steal my saddlebag?
Steal? Me? Why, I never.
I was holding on to it for you, Dee. You just left it lying around. It was inside the house. Yeah, with the door unlocked and everything. Anyone could have grabbed it. Like you did. See? Now you get it.
Robin, stop this. You're not a child.
Sure I am. Look at me. A true kid at heart.
So am I to assume that the druid's account is true? They followed you through a ley line after you made off with their things for some inexplicable reason? It seems plausible. Right. Well, that's one problem sorted at least. Now we know for certain it was an accident. That should help when I explain this mess to the king. What?
Oh, you don't really have to drag him into all this, do you?
With all that's, happened recently. He might not take too kindly to... Of course I have to tell him. This is a matter of security. But I could just pop them back over right now and no one's the wiser. Except me, you, the druid, anyone they may tell. Shh, you can keep it secret, can't you, Dee?
Robin. Babe.
This is serious. Accident or not, you've forced us into a sensitive diplomatic situation.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I got it. Big man said he wanted eyes on the inside, didn't he? Well, here you go. Eyes on the inside. Trustworthiness certified. We can just tell him that and ignore the other bits. What? No, I'm not going to lie to the king. It's not a lie, just a little bit of bullshit. Hey, we all do a little bit of bullshitting from time to time, don't we, Maeve? After all, this isn't exactly the first time. Hold your tongue. Smiling, Robin proceeds to stick out his tongue and hold it physically. So, total side note. Robin is non-binary and shapeshifter. Totally makes sense. And they go by pretty much any pronoun. So, for example, earlier, I called Robin a she and a they, and now Robin's a he. And it just kind of randomly chooses one. I don't know if it's random, actually, but point is, Robin goes by all things. Robin is Robin. You can't pin down what is Robin. You stay here with the druid. I'm going to find the king and request a private audience with all three of us, and we're going to be forthright with him. But in the meanwhile, keep a low profile for once, would you? As Maeve begins to walk away, Robin swerves around and grabs me by the shoulders.
Could you help me out here, would you?
Do I help Robin? Or do I say, screw you! I'm here because of you. And why the hell would I do that? You robbed me! Robin lets her arms fall to the side as she sighs loudly. Oh, I don't know. Maybe because both our hides are on the line. I cross my arms and step away from Robin. Even if that's true, I trust Maeve a great deal more than I trust you. That's true. I do. So whatever it is you're scheming, I will have no part in it. What? Me scheming? Why, I never. I glare at them. But, okay, you win.
But could you at least do me one teensy tiny little favor?
How teensy tiny are we talking? The teeniest. I just need you to hold something for a bit. I heave a labored sigh. Don't do it. It's gonna get you in trouble. No, absolutely not. Bah, you're not much fun, are you? Oh well. Without another word, Robin saunters off to the dining table and picks up a loaf of bread and an entire boat of gravy, only to then immediately nudge a fellow to their left and hand the latter off to them, gesturing down towards the end of the table. I don't like the look of this. But before I can even think to intervene on whatever this is, the hapless accomplice has already shrugged and started making their way down the room, shouting all the while. Did Nye and Eve ask for some gravy over here? Robin smiles mischievously, watching and waiting. Suddenly, they look back over at me, giving me a brief once-over before tearing off a strip of bread. Want some? I narrow my eyes and shake my head. Suit yourself? Robin then pops the torn piece into their mouth and chucks the rest of the bread clean across the room with the same speed and precision they threw my saddlebag earlier. Only, this time the poor lad with the gravy boat didn't have a strong lady friend to stop him from getting smacked upside the head, nor from tripping over and dumping the contents of the gravy boat. Splat. Right onto Maeve, just as she was about to leave the throne room. More. Oh gods, I'm so sore. Who threw that? My mouth hangs wide open, as does everyone else in the room, except for Robin, who immediately leaps back over to me. Oh my, what a terrible turn of events. Poor Maeve's gonna have to find a change of clothes. Despite Robin's joviality, it does nothing to penetrate the fraught tension that now proliferates the room. Everyone has stopped eating, stopped talking. There's not a sound to be heard other than the faint drip, drip, drip of gravy onto the stonework floors. Maeve, meanwhile, has yet to say anything at all, nor even move from her spot by the door. Her back is completely turned to us, rendering it impossible to see her face or read her expression. The silence is unnerving, even to Robin, who exhales a wry chuckle.
Salt gravy there, maybe?
Lord almighty. I couldn't have said it worse myself. Everyone who is not named Robin Goodfellow, kindly stand aside. With militant obedience, everyone standing between Maeve and Robin step out of the way, leaving a clear pathway for Maeve to march down. Which she does, quickly and with direct focus. Someone's looking a little mad, huh? Come on now, I'm sure they didn't mean to. Maeve, steel-faced, drops a hand onto Robin's shoulder.
Robin. Uh-oh.
Yes?
What is back on the menu?
They didn't stand a chance. Within seconds, Maeve had effortlessly hoisted Robin up over her head, and she tossed him in a clean line down the table, hitting every item on it along the way. Impressively, it takes about a solid minute and a half for Robin to come to a skidding halt, now totally slathered from head to hoof in cake, tomato, mashed potato, and so on. He groans as he hobbles into an upright position, wiping the slurry of food from his face. Welp. Can't say I was expecting that. Good. Learned your lesson then? Nope. Yeah, I was expecting that. Suddenly, Robin springs to their feet, standing high atop the table with an entire tray of disparate food items, which they begin to pelt out wildly and with reckless abandon, having no care for anyone they may hit in the process.
I know only escalation.
Bollocks. Maeve, sensing her waning choice in the matter, attempts to rush Robin and get them to stop. But by now it's too late. Maeve may be strong, but Robin is quick. The game is on, and clearly Robin intends to win. find the flying food. She skips down the table, tossing food everywhere, including back at Maeve herself. A few bystanders attempt to slow Robin down by slinging food back at her, but not all of them meet their mark, which then inevitably results in a few cases of mistaken intent. And with it, retaliation. Soon enough, with the feast hall itself half-trassed and intoxication already running rampant through the crowd, others begin to participate in the mayhem in earnest. Maeve briefly tries to yell some sense in people, but she goes unheard in and amongst the pandemonium. Nothing is able to escape the pure, unadulterated chaos of culinary warfare, as the walls, floors, and people between them get thoroughly smeared and soiled. Man, what a waste of food! It's nothing short of a miracle that I haven't been caught in the fray yet myself, but I know it's only a matter of time for me, so... hide! I duck and cover underneath the dining table, obviously. I'm not getting these fancy Seelie clothes dirty. The battle rages on for a while, though I have no way of knowing what's happening out there beyond what I can see through the flurry of legs and hear above me. Though, from what I can tell, Robin has remained, for the most part, on top of the table, zipping up and down, stirring up the chaos further, as Maeve continues to shout at him to stand down. Suddenly, though, even as it seems the madness will never end. What?
What are you all doing?
Yeah, what a scene to walk into. You're the king going in for you've been requested for an audience. You walk into your throne room and there's a food fight going on. Mass chaos everywhere. Oh my gosh. That's so funny. So funny. All right. So we've seen Maeve's chapter. We've seen Robin's chapter. Time to meet the king. Chapter 8. The King's Proposal. All the joviality that was once present in the unseelie throne room abruptly dies. No one speaks, no one whispers, no one even dares to move. I strain my head from under the table, trying to catch a glimpse of the person whose mere presence managed to cut through Robin's calculated chaos in one fell swoop. It's no use, though, between the throng of people. I can't see anything at all, but I can still hear.
So is this what is to become of my father's court? The Dagda's feast, put to waste and desecrated. Chaos and tomfoolery at the very seat of our hard-fought throne.
My king.
Permit me to... It is plain enough.
I'm sorry, my king. Things got out of hand.
There's a long, palpable silence. I hold my breath, waiting in anticipation for what the king does next.
All guests are to leave the premises effective immediately. Inform those still yet waiting to join in on the Dagda's feast that it will recommence tomorrow. And know that tonight's hunger was brought about by your actions here.
Now go. I hear murmurs and the swift shuffling of feet from all around me. Thinking fast, I try to duck out from under the table and sneak outside with the crowd. But I can't. My cloak strains on my neck. Looking back, I see that it got snagged in a groove on those table legs. By the time I manage to unhook myself, there aren't enough people close by to hide me. I'd be spotted leaving for sure. Eventually, I hear the doors close again, so I shuffle to the middle of the table to avoid being seen. The room descends into silence, spare for the heavy and rapidly succeeding footsteps of, presumably, the king against the stone floors.
Flan!
Slow down there, buddy. There's no need to act.
Robin,
Isn't there, Goodfellow? Unable to help myself, I press myself low and peek around the table legs, trying to observe what's going on. I can't see much, but I do see the king. Tall, fiery-haired, and scowling. And I see Robin, hooves dangling midair, as the king hoists her up by the scruff of her neck. It doesn't seem to be hurting her, though, at least no more than a mother cat hurts her kittens. Because I can think of no one more flagrantly disrespectful as to instigate. Put her down. But she started it. Yes, but I also accelerated the matter to an extent. Are you going to wring me out by the neck? Is this true? Robin proceeds to nod his head vigorously.
Yup. We're all blasphemers here.
The king abruptly drops Robin, who lands with an ungraceful clatter to the ground.
You dropped me on a fork? That's forking smarts.
If only any part of you was smart. In any case, I suppose both of you will have the profound displeasure of picking up every breadcrumb in this room tonight. I'll not have the servants waste their labor on such nonsense. Understood. Robin, despite their whining, springs up from the ground with surprising elasticity, but still makes a show of rubbing down their Youchie. Sure thing, Chief. Good. Now then, perhaps one of you can tell me who that might be under the table. My eyes widen as I scramble away from my peeping spot, as though this would turn me invisible again. Just how long had he noticed I was there? Strangely, though, I don't hear the conversation continue. Squinting, I crane my head slightly to the side, but all I hear is some whisperings, and then... Ah! I flinch and scurry myself slightly backward, now face to face with the king, who just seemingly lifted the entire table up with one hand, effortlessly.
Manon.
Right. My soul. The king stares me down, his face inscrutable. Then, wordlessly, he thrusts his free hand out to me, his palm turned upward. Yeah, okay. I mean, no point being rude to the king. I glance between the king's face and his hand. Gingerly, I reach out and take it. His hand... It's probably either his hands are or his hand is firm and calloused, not to mention significantly larger than mine. Still, his hold is not aggressive, as he only uses enough force to help me out from under the table. Soon enough, I'm back on my feet again, and caught between the three collective stares of Robin, Maeve, and the king of the Unseelie court. I fidget in my spot, waiting anxiously for someone to say something, do something, for anything to happen, really. Still, I don't dare speak up first. I don't believe that belongs to you. I raise my head, furrowing my brows slightly at the king. Sorry? Without further elaboration, the king simply lifts his hand to me and hooks his finger beneath the clasp of Maeve's cloak.
this. Remove it.
The king's hand falls away from me. Instinctively, I look towards Maeve and Robin, but their faces tell me nothing. It seems between the three of us, all we can collectively feel is worry. With a sigh and not much else I can do, I hesitantly remove the cloak, prompting the king to stand up straighter with a hard expression on his face. I see. Another present from the Celia court. The king cranes his head to the side, glaring at Robin. What? Why do you always assume it's my fault? It always is. But not this time. Not really. They just fell through one of the ley lines before it closed behind me. I didn't mean... How curious. Then I gather the assured security of your method of travel was an outright lie then. Who else might you accidentally let in, I wonder? The king's words cause everyone else to fall silent for a moment, a grave tension in the air. Flan, let's not jump to conclusions. Yeah, and besides, it only happened because they were chasing me. Chasing you? Why? The king glances down my way, anticipating an answer. Do I let Robin defend themselves? Or do I explain? I've been kind of a jerk to Robin. In the intensity of the king's gaze, I find myself unable to find my words. Oh, well, obviously they were just happy to see me, of course. What? The scowl on the king's face deepens. He brings his hand to his face and pinches the bridge of his nose. Well then, this is a profoundly idiotic state of affairs. You two, I want this place spotless by tomorrow. Of course. Yep, you can count on us. And you. The king turns to face me abruptly. You come with me. With that, the king briskly walks past me and over to the doors. I feel my heart beating in my ears, and my fears unbidden falling from my mouth. What are you going to do with me? The king stops in his tracks, peering over his shoulder. Violating the court's treaty of mutual surrender is a grave offense, Druid. What is to be done remains to be seen. One last time I look at Maeve and Robin. Maeve smiles at me softly, nodding her head. And Robin, of course, winks. I sigh, breathing deep, and follow after the king. The unseelie king and I traverse through the castle halls without a single word passing between us. His stride is swift, but he does not attempt to overpower me, and in fact glances over his shoulder from time to time to make sure I'm keeping up. But my stomach twists and turns the longer we walk. Where is he taking me, and for what purpose? Robin and Maeve seem to be confident enough that the king is reasonable, and that he won't take drastic action. But is that true? So far, he seems temperamental and austere, even self-righteous. And what's worse, he has good reason to distrust me. My unintended transgressions aside, he thinks, like everyone else does, that I'm a member of the Celia court, an important member at that. Right now, for all intents and purposes, he and I are enemies. We're here. I startle a little as the king's sudden announcement pulls me out of my musings. Where's here? Looking around, we don't seem to be anywhere in particular, just standing in front of an inconspicuous door. Somewhere fairly out of the way on the other side of the castle. My bedchambers. I raise my eyebrows, but I have no time to respond. The king immediately turns the door handle, opening it wide, and... Bark! 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 Doggos! Oof. Unable to stop what's about to happen, I find myself being tackled to the ground by 3 large dogs, all bounding out past the king in quick succession. There's nothing I can do but lie there, flat and helpless, as I'm mercilessly stepped on, nuzzled, and licked.
Kunri, Kunal, Kuan.
The beloved pups. Aww. Despite the king's commands, there is seemingly no end to the onslaught. I'm surrounded on all sides, and they're much too big for me to shove aside or squirm away from in a hurry. Eventually, the king is forced to come to my direct aid, kneeling down and pushing past the dogs in order to grab hold of my arm and pull me up. Get a hold of yourselves, you know better. Yup. Aww. Sorry about that. They're very excitable. Still regaining my bearings, all I can manage is a breathless nod and a weary smile. He's a dog guy. He is a dog lover. I'm a little endeared already. Anyway, come in. The king stands aside for me and the dogs, who all run back into the room ahead of he and I. After giving the king a brief glance, I turn my head downward again and follow suit. As I step inside, the first thing I notice is the king's room is remarkably plain, or at the very least, unkingly. It's not terribly big or fancy. There's some shelves, a table, a cluttered rug for the dogs, and some chairs with a footstool by the fire. But I could just as well see this room belonging to me or even an unimportant servant. There's no sense of status, nothing beyond sheer utility. Did the king choose this room? It's odd in hindsight that it's so down and out of the way. Stranger still, though, is what's missing from the room entirely, namely, a bed. Could it be in that other room with the locked door? No, locked is the wrong word for it. The door is bolted shut from the outside with not one but two locks and a large plank of wood. Talking about this door, I suppose. I find myself staring at it longer than I should. Take a seat. I whirl back around to the king's gaze, putting the strange door out of my mind. I get the feeling it's the last thing I ought to be asking about at the moment, so I simply follow the king's gesture over to the fireside and sit down. In the meanwhile, the three dogs all pile onto the rugs down and around my feet, all panting and warming themselves by the fire. As for the king, he remains standing, leaning back against the table, where he then removes his eye patch, placing it down beside him. I didn't expect him to do that, and I'm surprised by what I see. There's a redness around the eye, perhaps a burn mark, but the eye itself has something strange about it too, though I can't quite put my finger about it. Or quite put my finger on it.
Think me handsome, do you?
I mean,
Think me handsome?
yeah, actually. I usually advance the dialogue with the space, and so by the time I get my hand on the mouse to like choose an option, it's already too late. But luckily, I just like rolled back and chose my choice. Now look. He's like, I didn't mean it. I slapped my hand immediately over my mouth. Christ, why did I say that? Well. Unfortunate, given the circumstances. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. The king holds up his hand, seemingly just as eager to move on from the subject as I. Tell me what you know of the War of the Courts, Druid of the Sealy Court. I sit up straighter and tilt my head, racking my brain for what to say. Oh man. I don't Not much, I'm afraid. All that was a while before my time. Which, by all accounts, is a true statement. I just got here. Just as well. No doubt whatever you've heard has been colored by Seelie bias anyway. I will be as brief as I can. Once, Tir na nog was a united land, at least in name. The 4 provinces were ruled over by the unbroken lineage of this person, son of Dagda, who was himself of Danu's progeny. He was elected to rule by the kings of the old world, and the blood of the goddess sanctified his reign, as well as his descendants thereafter. Yet, despite this honored lineage, Tir na nog found itself plagued by a fool, King Moirai. He was weak, ignorant, and turned a blind eye to the grotesque greed of the Flatha?
Fla. And then the plural. Flaha. Fla. And then the plural. Flaha.
The noble class of society. They typically consist of hereditary landowners. Okay. And to the corruption in his own court as well. Half the land was inundated by abject poverty and squalor. The average freeman could hardly afford to eat, and what remained of their meager earnings were either returned to the Fatha in tribute or outright stolen. This is to say nothing of the unfree.
Baha. And then the plural. Bahaka.
That. An unfree class of unskilled laborers. While they earn wages, they have fewer rights. And these other people.
Shen Kleha. And then the plural. Shen Klehi.
An unfree class of domestic servants. Or often no better off than
Fura. And then the plural. Furi.
migrants and criminals. Not recognized as legal persons, cannot earn wages. And all were subject to grueling back-breaking labor in the fields and mines. Do not mistake me, though. Our nobility was not a unique evil. Falius and Phineas played no small part in the subjugation of Marius and Gorius as well. After all, the king did nothing to prevent the indefinite inflation of spring and summer's critical exports, such as produce. In that sense, the autumn and winter
Tierna.
Tierna?
Tierney.
Okay. Must have felt justified in working my people to the brink. But not for their sake, of course. Flatha only concerned themselves with the maintenance of their own wealth. Gods forbid they ever forego a decadent feast. Regardless.
The most vulnerable people of Tir na nog were suffering, living existences of pure misery. Good, honest, hard-working folk would watch their children starve. And yet, not one member of the ruling class did anything to stop it. Much less the king.
They were only common folk, after all. Their deaths only mattered if it impacted the amount of wealth they cultivated for their superiors. The quality of their lives was not worthy of consideration at all. Just total side note. I find it really interesting that, like, I just stop smacking the table. I find it really interesting that, like, what we're getting right now is big lordom, right? But I don't actually mind it too much, because it's also kind of telling us a bit about the king, right? What he thinks is important and not important So I appreciate that there's that flavor to it, even though it is just a big lore dump. Or info dump. So we were in dire straits, so much so that it came to the point that the gods had no choice but to intervene. This was not the first time that we had faced such vile adversity, but in those days, it was the...
For Moira.
Who kept us bound and repressed. Not our own people. My head spins as I take in all of this, but one question sticks out in my mind. What do you mean when you say the gods had no choice but to intervene? I'm surprised you don't know, Druid. The blessings of Danu are many. Chief among them is long life, and godhood or even rebirth for the most exceptional. High King Lu, for example. He led an extraordinary first life, accomplished great things. In turn, he is now regarded as a god, and has lived multiple lives in Ishvale, even after our rule of it. Do you know of the warrior... whoever that is? A legendary warrior, also known as Kulin's Hound. He was known for being able to enter into a battle frenzy that did not distinguish between friend or foe. He was said to be an iteration of Lu, as was my father. Lugad. There we go. He, along with the druid Finn, were the driving forces behind our rebellion. They embody the souls of our ancient kings, who likewise fought for the freedom. Tua de Nan. Tua de Danan. Yeah, that. The Seelie can sneer and disbelieve all they want, but our cause is righteous, and my father... The king suddenly turns away from me for a moment, so that I cannot see his face.
He was an unparalleled leader, and an inspiration to us all. All that we have today was wrought by his hands.
I squint a little, fidgeting in my seat. So, why are you telling me this? Straight to the point, then. First things first, I won't be sending you to the block, so you needn't look at me so sullenly. But it isn't on Maeve's or Goodfellow's word, nor is it because I trust you.
It's because, and only because, your death benefits the Seelie more than it benefits us.
With no disrespect to you or your capabilities, you're an expendable asset to the Seelie. If you die, another druid will take your place. But you are important enough to cause a stir. Treaty or no treaty, they'll call your execution first blood.
This so-called peace, this pathetic truce, it was never meant to last. It was only ever the Seelie's last-ditch effort to stop the oncoming tide, to give them time to regather their strength.
But, to their credit, it worked. We're weaker now than we were then, having lost not one of our patriarchs, but two. Finn, lost to the war, and now Lugad, murdered. I stare at the king, my mouth agape. What? It is not common knowledge. Only the closest to my circle know, and now so do you. Yeah, why me? I am in shock. I can't believe what the king is telling me. But why? Why you? Reasonable question. Well, it's fairly straightforward. I want you to help me find the bastard who killed him, and if the Seelie are to blame. I nearly choke on the air, all manner of color leaving my face. One of the dogs looks up at me, startled by the sound. You what? But I... Are the court druid to the Seelie Queen? Yes. If this was her plot, or the doing of another member, you are close enough to the beast's beating heart to discover its nature.
I'm no fool, though. I don't believe I've swayed your loyalties just by relaying to you this tale. For all I know, the moment I release you, you'll go crawling back to the Queen. Of course, if you do, keep in mind the Seelie will be more inclined to honour the treaty than I, at present. So I'd advise against it.
Besides, I can offer you something the Seelie Queen cannot, or perhaps more accurately, will not. And what's that? Your freedom. Your freedom to leave. I don't claim to be privy to the ins and outs of magic or how it works, but I know desperation when I look it in the eye. No Seelie is as skinny as you. You've been starving yourself, trying to open one of the waypoints out of Tirnanogan into Inishfield, haven't you? No, don't even bother responding. I know it's true. I've seen others try it during the height of the war, and die in the process. You should know that one druid isn't enough to break through Donna's seal, except maybe for the archdruid, but even then. Your window of time is brief. Maybe you do somehow manage the ritual all by yourself. You'd still have maybe a minute or two before the waypoint closes again. You could die or get lost in the void between. Forever. It isn't a risk worth taking, trust me. Besides, as you know, the Order of the Eternal Flame took no side in the war and agreed to assist both Dominion in druidic and godly affairs. What I'm saying is, I have the power to ask that you be let free, and I will, upon my honor, should you decide to help us. I don't know. I understand that you've had a very long day, so I will give you 3 days of sanctuary to make your choice. Even if you are a spy, you won't find out much in that time. You'd be surprised. After that, you will no longer be welcome here. You must either return to the Seelie or face the consequences of your actions, accident or not. Understood? I nod and find myself wordlessly rising to my feet. I wasn't dismissed, but I need to get out of this room. I need to think. The king, for his part, does not stop me. But as I begin to open the door... One last thing, child of... Meal. Tentatively, I look over my shoulder.
This story is bigger than you and your desires. Remember that, as you make your choice.
I say nothing, closing the door behind me. The saddlebag slips from my hand, the treasures it contains sprawling all across the floor below me. I can scarcely bear to look.
Derfi siad go bhfuair mé bás.
They will say I died. Well, end of the demo, I guess. Perfect timing. I was distracted because my cursor turned into a heart. I was like, is this like, you know, a romantic scene? No, it's just it's just credits. Nice. Those are all of the Patreon supporters, I suppose. They're all like crossing at my cursor. Yeah. That's funny. My poor computer trying to render all the animations. So I think all of these are the Kickstarter backers. So they're trying to, like, I don't know, make it clever and try to get through them in a decent amount of time, but like I feel like a simple scroll, like a simple quick scroll would have sufficed. And you know, been easier to read if I actually cared about any of these people, right? Where do the S's? They seem to be in alphabetical order. T's! T's! Yay! Thank you for playing! There we go. I was like, it didn't crash, did it? There's a door. It is sealed shut. I remember reading comments about this, about the door. And there's like a secret hidden in the demo. It has to do with the little paper, the translation guide, or like symbols and translations that we saw in Shay's room last week when we looked at the map. It's a whole thing. Lots of people were upset about it on Itch in the comments. Like, and there's like a file in the machine, and you have to like translate it. It's a whole thing. And lots of people were like, I shouldn't have to do this. But like, it gives you the choice to walk away. You don't have to unlock the door. Yeah, I don't know the password. But that's okay. The door does not heed your words. That's fine. I'm not going to spend the time to try to unlock it. You're certain you had the right words written down somewhere. Did you leave it at home? In your pocket? We're just gonna walk away. That's fine. All right. Well, that was the Good People demo. Very fun. Really enjoyed it. And so that was the common route. So I kind of wonder how how the structure is going to play out. So I know that Shay's and Maeve's roots are going to be the first ones released. And again, we saw those like books on the bookshelf. So each character's root is going to be released independently. And I imagine you just, go to that book to play through their route. But, do you have to play through each character's route to get to the next book? Because the books are numbered 1 through 7. Do you have to go in order? Can you just do whichever ones you're interested in? For any of the Sealy Court ones, they're gonna have to start with giving you a reason to go back to the Sealy Court, because I don't know, the king's request was kind of compelling. Yeah, really interesting, really cool demo. It'll be interesting to see that come out and be released. I expect it's going to take a long time for all 6 fruits to be released. Yeah. So, I'm taking next week off, so no stream next Friday. I'll be back on whatever day that is, September 13th. Not sure yet what I will stream, but I'll find something. If there is something you would like to watch me play, let me know. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.